Hello, here we are to talk a little bit about natural science. We keep working on plants, so what we are going to do today is to talk about agriculture, that it is very important because it's a part of plants related at giving food to us, okay? So I need you to move on to your natural science pupils book. Let's move on to page 58 and 59. This that you have in here, and let's see about the different kinds of agriculture and different applications. Okay, first of all, I'm going to show you my whiteboard to explain more or less what we are going to do on this part of the unit, and then I will explain it little by little according to the book. Okay, are you having here? We can divide agriculture, or we can classify agriculture into two types. Depending on the classification of the agriculture, depends on the kind of crops or the kinds of farming. What is the difference? Crops is the food you are going to grow, the vegetables or the cereal or the fruit you are going to grow. The farming is related about the work, about how we get crops. Okay, farming is the way to get crops. About crops is very easy. You only have to think about the different kinds of plants we have studied. When we studied plants in the classification, we divided plants into three different types. Herbaceous or grasses, do you remember? Shrubs or trees. So we are going to get food from these three types of plants. Really easy. Then we are going to classify farming depending on two factors. The species of the plants we are going to grow in our crops, or the water they need to grow up, okay? About the species, there are two kinds of agriculture. Do you remember always Latin and Greek when we are talking about the origin of words? Here we go again. Mono means one, remember. Monosílabo, una sílaba, okay? Monolítico, una piedra. Mono means one, okay? One species of plants. Poly means a lot. Remember, polisílabo, muchas sílabas, okay? So, poly means a lot. Polyculture means agriculture with more than one or two species in the same area, okay? If we are studying farming about water, we have again two classifications. The one's about irrigation, okay? Irrigation is like in Spanish, irrigar. Irrigar sounds like regar, to water. They need reservoirs. It means that you need to take water and water the plants. However, the crops that are for dry land, dry, do you know what is dry? The opposite to wet. Very few water. Dry land means that it's enough with the water from rain. You don't have to water that crops, okay? Those crops have enough water with the water from rain. So I hope that, let me show you. Okay, here we are. I hope that with this mind map, you can understand the structure of the units. Now I'm going to explain it little by little. Is it clear? Yes? Off we go. If you move on to page 58, okay, the types of crops, depending on the kind of plants that they produce their food, we have the herbaceous crops. For example, cereals and vegetables, okay, because they grow very, very quickly from seeds that you plant, okay, and you have one harvest in 1 year, okay, you have an example of cereal here. Then we've got shrubs crops, okay, remember the shrubs are just in the middle between grasses and trees. Shrubs crops, like for example, grapes, or maybe you can say strawberries or some other fruit, okay, they grow more slowly than these ones, okay, and they can produce crops for many years, not only for 1 year, okay, and farmers often produce them from cuttings. Do you remember when we studied asexual reproduction? Do you remember cuttings? like geraniums. You've got it on the previous pages. Let me double check you here. The catkins, okay, the grapevines, do you remember? This is what we are relating in here. And finally, the tree crops, usually for fruits. These crops have a long productive life of many years. It means these plants produce 1 year and the plants die, okay? It means that you need this to be planted the following year, okay? These plants can live for several years, not a lot, but a few years more. And this means that you have the same plant producing and producing year after year, year after year. Okay, for example, the fruit trees like oranges or apples or pears. Okay, I think this is really, really easy. But as always, if you don't understand, you can contact me. Then we have the types of farming. Even when you have here the 4 together, I separated it into 2. Remember, depending on the species, depending on the water, okay? If we pay attention to the different species of crops, the different species means kinds, okay? We have 2, monoculture and polyculture. In monoculture, farmers grow only one type of plants. They plant rice, only rice. They plant wheat, only wheat. They plant, I don't know, lettuces in only lettuces, okay? And these crops are very, very large, very, very big. Polyculture means that in the same area you have different kinds of crops, okay? And the farms are smaller. And you have in one part you have cereal, in another part you have lettuces, in another part you have tomatoes, in another part you have peppers, okay? Easy to understand too. And in this too, we attend to the amount of water we use to grow these crops. Irrigation farming is the typical, for example, that we have in Murcia. Okay, farmers get water from rivers and from reservoirs. It means that the crops use lots and lots of water, okay? These products are really good, like tomatoes, like peppers. We love them, but it's true that they have a bad part. It's that they need a lot of water that is not a natural resource from rain. Okay, sometimes we need to take water from other places and transport the water to here to water the crops. And finally, we have the dryland farming. This uses only natural rainfall, okay? They use only the rain from the precipitation and that's all. For example, olive trees, okay, or grapes. Grapes that you have in here, grapes in olive trees, they don't need water. They don't need extra water. It's enough with the water from the sky, with the rain. Okay, in this part, it doesn't appear on my whiteboard, but it's easy to understand too. Is what usually farmers do to have bigger crops, to have more products, more fruit, more cereals, more vegetables. To do this, they use pesticides, fertilizers, greenhouses, and modified crops. About pesticides, okay, is the chemicals that kill the insects or the bacteria or the virus, well, not the viruses, that are harmful for crops, okay? If you don't use pesticides, the animals eat that fruit or eat that vegetables or eat that cereal. So they need to use pesticides to kill worms or slugs or caterpillars or beetles or mosquitoes, all those insects and other living things that eat the crops, okay, to prevent it. Also, they use fertilizers that are chemical nutrients for the soil to help the plants to grow bigger and stronger, okay. We use fertilizers. In the past, one of the most common fertilizers that we used to use was the poo from the animals, from the horses and the cows, okay? When the poo, we collected it, is what we say in Spanish, estiércol, and it was a very good fertilizer. But nowadays, apart from that, we use chemical products. What is the problem of this? That sometimes the fertilizers contaminate the water. The water that then we have to drink is contaminated by fertilizers, and we have to clean that water, and it can have some problems. Then we have greenhouses. The word for greenhouse in Spanish is invernaderos. This is the typical that you can see in Almeria. It can be also a little bit problematic. In fact, if you look for pictures from the satellites, from the space of Spain, you can see the country and you can see the white plastic areas on Almeria because of the greenhouses, okay? Imagine that in the past, fruit and vegetables only grow in a part of the year, but now you can eat gherkins and tomatoes and oranges and apples the whole year. This is not common, okay? We can do that because of the greenhouses. Farmers can control temperature, light, and water. They can create false seasons, okay, to grow crops all the year, not only in the season. For example, watermelons or melons are only typical in summer, or apricots only in June, or peaches only, okay? They're fruits that you only can eat in the period of time, but things like tomatoes or gherkins or aubergines or broccoli, these kind of vegetables we eat the whole year, is not what nature would do, okay? In nature, you have a cycle and you have periods of time for specific food, okay? However, thanks to greenhouses, we can have a lot of food all year round, okay? And finally, modified crops that they can be also a little bit dangerous for humans. Some farmers grow crops varieties that scientists have created artificially in laboratories. Do you remember that we have talked about DNA many times? ADN, that are the plants for living things, to grow up, to copy, the instructions to create living things. Well, sometimes what scientists do is that they modify the seeds with specific characteristics to produce more products in the same plant, or to avoid the plagues. The plagues are the insects and the worms and the other animals that eat those crops. It's what we say transgénicos in Spanish. What is the problem? That we haven't studied yet the consequences of this kind of food, and we haven't studied yet what is going to happen, not only to humans that we consume that products, also about the bees or the insects that are the pollinators, the agents that produce pollination, if these differences in DNA are changing things or not. We haven't studied completely about it, okay? It's important to have this into consideration, that sometimes the modifications we can make in DNA, we don't know if they are really sure for consume. By now they are accepted by law, but it's something that scientists are considering, okay? So these are the ways to get bigger crops, to get more products. On the next lesson, I will talk to you about how agriculture affects environment, about the good things, the good points of it, but also about the cons, okay, those things that are not so good and all the problems that this kind of agriculture are bringing to our days, okay? I hope everything is clear. If not, contact me. Bye bye.